Yeah, not my deal.
You can go back and eat.
This is not very.
I know, I usually go here,
Yeah, just like this.
and then usually this is right here.
Yeah. And then, there it is. It's time to get started, so.
Need a motion to move out.
Oh, yes, we need a motion to move out of closed session.
I'll make a motion that we move out of closed session at this time.
I'll say. Brian's got it. Okay, so we have a motion by Connie Archibald and a second by Brian Smith to move out of closed session where we were discussing personnel. We'll have a roll call vote. So Connie,
Oh, Connie Archibald, yes.
Julie Taylor, yes.
Brian Smith, yeah.
Nancy Kennedy, yes. Karen Cronin, yes.
Oh, I looked Wade. Sorry, Wade. I'm sorry without you.
Okay. State your name and your age.
We're moving out of closed session. Do you want to vote yes or? Big high yes. Okay.
Sorry.
So we'll move out of closed session and we will move into our board meeting. Today, but welcome to our board meeting for January. We are going to begin by spotlighting our birthday boy. Well, he's just been asking the reference. I don't want to embarrass him, but it is Wade Hyde's birthday and it is superintendent's anniversary. So they are sacrificing to be here with us tonight. So we're grateful for them and happy birthday and anniversary to you both. But we'll start with reverence by Wade Hyde, and then I will lead us in the flag salute, pledge of allegiance, and then we will do some recognitions.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to be here this evening at our board meeting. And we're so grateful for this wonderful district in which we live and for the children that we're able to help throughout their school year, from kindergarten through their senior year. We're so grateful for the positions that we hold and being able to help those children in every way that we possibly can. And we ask that will be with us tonight, that we're able to make the decisions that are best for kids throughout our district, and that we can listen and understand and hear those things that we need to hear and make the right decisions for the students of our district. And we thank the end of the name and say this prayer in Jesus' name.
Amen. Okay, please stand and join with me in the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our recognition, we'd like to excuse board member Summers tonight. She's away with her family, and so she's asked Wade Hyde and I believe Nancy to do a couple of our recognitions for us. So let's go ahead, Wade, and speak right into your microphone if you could. I know. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, our first recognition for tonight is our Sterling Scholars. And I apologize. I will do my best to pronounce names. If I say any that are incorrect, I apologize right up front. So here we go. Our Sterling Scholars from Box Elder High School for 2022. Grace Packer, Business and Marketing. Desiree Prince, Dance. Amy Hyatt, English. Michaela Norton, Family and Consumer Sciences. McCall Walker, Instrumental Music. Grace Johnson, Mathematics. Nisha Christensen, Science. Cooper Lloyd, Social Science. Sean Robinson, Theater, who was our student board. Yay! Reese Bushnell, Visual Arts. Emma Berry, Vocal Performance. Brooklyn Beaton, World Language. Victoria Cottrell, English. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Box Elder, and now we're going to Barabar High School, Sterling School for 2022. Victoria Cottrell, English. Hale Kowalis, Family and Consumer Sciences. Christine Murrow, Instrumental Music. Kylie Nelson, Mathematics. Courtney Nordis, Science. Riley Towns, Social Science. Nancy Smith, Speech, Theater Arts, and Forensics. Gracie Butler, Visual Arts. Shannon Epling, Vocal Performance. Iris Cooper, World Language. Parker Lichty, Computer Technology, and Trinity Hale, Skilled and Technical Sciences. And this is what is written on the congratulatory letter. The Box Elder School District Board of Education and leadership team would like to congratulate your amazing students at Box Elder High School and Bear River High School for being selected as Sterling Scholars. You have been chosen to represent these school departments because you have shown diligence and dedication to your schooling, leadership, and service opportunity. We are so proud of you and want to recognize your efforts. We know that the time you have given to qualify and apply for this distinguished honor will continue to be rewarded as you further your education. We wish you the very best in all of your future endeavors. Our sincere congratulations, the Box Elder School District Board of Education and the Box Elder School District Leadership. So even though I know we don't have a lot here, but let's give them a big hand. It's a wonderful accomplishment, to say the very least.
Thank you.
Then we have one more.
Oh, you have one more?
Then,
Oh,
then
you're sorry.
we'll have Nancy do the last one, okay?
I jumped.
Anyway, we'd like to congratulate Casey Wood and the Box Elder High School Madrigal Choir. The Box Elder School District Board of Education leadership team want to thank you for your exceptional performance at the USBA Annual State Conference last Thursday evening. You all did an amazing job. You represented our district so very well. Mr. Wood, we appreciate the work you do with these fine young people, and we recognize the high level of professionalism and talent you bring to Box Elder High School's music program. We're so grateful for you, and you're proud of the students like you who are dedicated to education in many different aspects of life. You are diligent, not only in your studies, but also to growing your talents, and we recognize the time and effort you are putting into becoming the best that you can be. Thank you for being willing to share your time and talents with the administrators and board members that attended our state conference. Sincerely, the Box Elder School District Board of Education and the Box Elder School District Leadership Team. So let's give Mr. Wood and the Madrigals Box Elder. Nancy has one. And she would
Thank
like-
you very much. So the Box Elder School Board of Education and Leadership Team are so grateful and proud of the work that our district bus drivers do in transporting children to and from school every day, and the many additional trips that the activity and team buses require. Many of our rural roads are unplowed and icy in the winter months, and dusty or muddy, potholed and unmarked in the spring. They drive long stretches of highway and back roads, always mindful of the safety and security of our students. Last Wednesday night, January 5th, the board member was returning home from a late night class in Logan through Sardine Canyon. The weather was terrible, visibility was low, and the road southbound through the canyon had not been plowed. There were 2 tire tracks, and as the board member got into the canyon, she saw the flashing lights of a school bus moving slowly south. She got behind the bus and followed it. Gradually, more and more of the cars got in line behind the bus, and each of us were content to let the bus lead the way. Driving into Brigham, she followed the bus into the middle school where members of the boys basketball team were meeting their parents, and the board member was able to meet the driver, Rachel Smith. Rachel's a fairly new driver who was just hired in September and did a terrific job of getting the basketball team and many other drivers in their personal cars safely home. The boys did win their game that night as well. We have 107 bus drivers in our district, 20 substitutes, 40 bus paraprofessionals, 4 mechanics, several schedulers, trainers, and office staff, and drive the equivalent of a trip from Logan to San Francisco to New York City each morning, and then repeating the same trip in the evening. These drivers are well-trained and patient with their noisy cargo, and each and every one of them deserve our thanks and commendations for jobs very well done. We could not be the school district we are without these dedicated professionals. I just want to say I'm a really pretty intrepid driver. I have a Jeep and I got brand new snow tires for Christmas. Woo-hoo. And when I pulled into Sardine, it was pitch black and there was one line, the 2 trail, and I was terrified. And then I saw the bus and it was like a beacon. And it was just, and I was just so grateful for this driver. And when she stopped afterwards, I went up, she was young. And I was very surprised. And I said, you have no idea how grateful, because nobody was passing the bus. Everybody was right in behind. And I didn't know if it was an Ogden bus or another district that had been playing up with the 4As. But she pulled off into Brigham, and I am just so grateful for bus drivers. I know the routes out in Park Valley and Grouse Creek are awful. And anyway, I personally am thankful, and I'm just grateful that we've got drivers willing to do this. And I think we've got tremendous staff all the way around. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you. It's one of those things you don't realize how valuable they are until you got your kid on them and there's a bad storm and you think, hope they get home safely. So yes, we do have marvelous staff. One more quick recognition is we had our state conference this past weekend, and we'll talk about that more later. But I can speak. But our board received the Master School Boards Award, and basically what this means is we're trying to be good board members. We're educating ourselves, we're trying to reach out to the community, we're learning things that we need to learn, we're learning the rules and following it. And so as a board, we really work hard at educating ourselves, and we talk about professional development for teachers and professional development for all sorts of careers, and we as a board are really trying to do that as well. So this will go on our plaque in the back with this year's thing, but that's something that is a board, and that's the superintendent and the business administrator also involved in that, and that we're working hard to do as a board to stay relevant and aware of what's going on. So just like to make you aware of that. All right, let's move on to, we are going to recognize, kind of did this way high. It's his birthday today. And his wife and daughter are here. We want to welcome you. Thanks for coming. Exciting birthday night for you. Sometimes that happens. You have to celebrate your birthday with your favorite people. So welcome for that. And it looks like they brought cupcakes. So.
And I think there's got enough for everybody, I believe. So I think it's now the time to do it. I think it's good as time as any. Gary and Carrie, would you mind if I asked you if you guys would mind? And you can get even with Lori and
You came with the bride.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, so and this, by the way, was a secret. Ray didn't know that they were showing up. He's been working. They've been working with Marcy for a week
Oh, good.
to pull this off. Look at his face, it's red.
I asked him if he wanted me to make a big deal of like our conference, and he said, oh, no.
I am telling you, my 50th birthday, I had a spotlight on my front lawn.
I think I've got this.
Okay, so these are my
Thank you.
So, yeah.
One step.
Thank you, Laurie and Sadie and Scott. You are wonderful supports. We love Wade. We're so grateful you share him with us. And all the work that I know you guys do.
Robert, do you want one for all your cameras?
Are we singing?
Do you want to see? Hey, lead us, Bonnie. I'm not the.
Okay.
Please talk to the line.
This month is such a special.
Yeah.
Okay, just happy birthday. Okay, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
They're too chatty. All right, we are ready for an approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda this evening.
Second. So we have a motion by Connie Archibald and a second by Karen Cronin to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, motion is approved. Our first item on our agenda is public comment on school fees. Now, there's not very many people here, but does anybody have public comment specifically on school fees?
I have one comment that came in.
Okay, thank you.
I hope I can find this, if you'll give me.
Do you guys have the faces that we can pass around?
They're coming down the,
Oh, they're right out here.
oh, sorry.
Superintendent got stuck.
Yeah.
I got an email from an Elizabeth, I don't know if it's Clemens. Okay. It came on Saturday, December 11th, 2021. School fees are outrageous and the fee waiver needs to match the lunch waiver. I might add that that does. It did not, but it does then. Because how can I get a lunch discount but not get fees decreased at least? I make too much money when in reality I don't. I don't bring home my gross amount, so that shouldn't apply either. I'm a single mom taking care of 4 kids on my own with my income alone. Ridiculous. Thanks, Elizabeth.
But a fee,
Okay.
free and reduced lunch is the barrier, isn't it? Or
Yeah, so the fee waiver level and the free lunch, they used to be on a different scale. And now that scale, but there's free and then there's reduced. And so those, but that line to qualify are the same line now. It just depends on how above the line or below the line you are, depending on if it's free or reduced. But we certainly could send information to her about the differences between those two and how they're kind of similar as well.
Thank you. That's good to know that they're on the same level. That makes more sense too. Okay. And then we don't have any other public comment that nobody signed up for public comment. So we will just move on with our agenda for our action items. So the first thing on our agenda is the approval of the superintendent's contract. And we had an evaluation with him prior to this meeting and discussed some things and we are really grateful for the good job that he's doing as the superintendent, and we feel confident in his abilities and his leadership in our district. And so just wanted to let you know that we have, we're very blessed. He's done a great job, and it's been a difficult couple of years, especially, and lots going on. So go ahead, Shino.
I will make a motion that the Box Elder Board of Education renew Superintendent Carlson's 2-year contract. Contract is to begin on July 1st, 2022 and end on June 30th, 2024.
I'll second.
So we had a motion by Wei Kai and a second by Brian Smith to approve the superintendent's contract for the next 2 years, beginning in July 1st of this year. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. You are on the hook for
Thank
another
you.
2 years.
It's not taken.
I'll clap.
We really do appreciate your view, and sometimes it's hard to say that in a way that seems sincere. But I hope you know that we really do appreciate what you're doing, and we feel like we can talk to you and communicate, and we appreciate all of that. And
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I was very surprised at our meetings in Salt Lake at the turnover in superintendents in the last 2 years. Since we've been together, I was stunned. So grateful you're still here. And
yeah, certainly. Okay, let's move on to our approval of this 2022-23 school fees.
So the 3 PDFs that are there, I haven't touched the first one or the second one. But the third one, I haven't changed any fees, but I just wanted to show you, I've got a little bit better. And so just a reminder, all academic fees are decreasing by $30. And again, this is the second year in a row that we've seen a decrease. Last year's were around $15 to $20. This year is an additional $30. And there is some off the record, there is a lot of movement at the state legislator level of wanting to put some money to all districts to eliminate academic fees across the state. It'll be interesting if that happens or doesn't happen, but as for now, this is where we are. We are seeing, so in the last 2 years, we've seen a pretty significant fee decrease. The $30 this year is from digital curriculum, and we're using other funds moving forward to take care of kind of the one-on-one and Chromebook initiative and things like that. I just want to point to this third thing. I am really excited if the board approves tonight how this is going to look on a school's webpage, and so parents can really see. Obviously, this whole document, just like it was this year, will be there. But if you click on, for example, Box Elder High School down here, and again, we're talking more of the athletic activity fees. Every advisor or coach will have something completed that will be able to say, okay, so I'm a parent and I want to find out, I want to try out, or I want to be a part of whatever that may be, right? Let's say I want to play volleyball. And so I would click on that as a parent, immediately we'll know who the head coach is and what the maximum fee could be. But then inside here, you will see a case by case, step by step, exactly what things will be spent for. And Karen brought up, board member Cronin brought up a really good thing last time, which is what happens if I don't go to something? Well, then you wouldn't pay for that something. If it's something like that, that can not be, if I don't go on the trip, I don't pay for the trip. If I don't qualify for stay, I wouldn't pay that. So, but this would all be listed here. And so every sport, every activity would have the costs. And what would happen then is you really kind of know what's out there. And, it may even say there's a summer camp we host, you might not attend, but if you do, you know what that cost is. And we try to keep it under that maximum. So and again, I can't take credit for this, but I can say that I stole it. And it's been good. I've got to give Cache School District credit, as I saw there. It was just better than I thought ourselves. And I think it's an upgrade. And I think you'll be able to be very specific about what the price of things are. It does give coaches and advisors a little wiggle room because, again, it's January and we're approving for next spring's cost, which is really hard to project, 15 months out. So I do believe by increasing our maximum gives a little flexibility as the economies continue to fluctuate. So I just wanted to point out that that's there. As I go back to that particular section, just because I wanted to see if this was a model that you liked before I did it. Well, it took me a little bit, but I didn't finish Box Elder Middle. I didn't finish Bear River Middle, but I would get that finished this week if that's what we're going to do. And so wherever you're going, you'll know what club and cost and a breakdown, the spending plan, if you will. So I would entertain any feedback that you have, any other feedback you've heard from community members. I'm willing to tweak or whatever, but if there's nothing to the contrary, I would recommend that the school board approve our 22-23 school fees with academic fees decreasing by 30 and student group athletic team fees. We just increased it to be around the districts, just like all of us around. Our maximum fee would increase to $3,500. That would be a worst case scenario. When I say worse, someone who is involved in 3 activities plus choir and theater, and it would be like, this is highly involved person. And I guess if you do the math, you could actually get there. I'm not sure how many people would, but. So
Thank you for putting that together. And are there any comments from board members? Questions?
I just want to make one comment, and that is that when we addressed this, I don't know how many, I don't know, it was last year, all the years went together, 2 years ago. The parents that were attending that particular meeting, it was kind of surprising to me, but they're basic, all of them, if I remember correctly, all of them felt like that we weren't charging enough and that we weren't competitive that we didn't look as good as other teams. And so I think that this addresses that. Those parents that felt like we want to be able to compete and we want to be able to have, look the part rather than looking so odd. They felt like we had made things so, we were so frugal that we looked that way. And so I appreciate Mr. Meekum addressing that in this particular part of our agenda.
Thank you. I will say the second thing that we hear a lot of is it's this, and then, oh, by the way, we need this. And oh, by the way, there's just one more thing. This is just optional, but it sure be nice for the kids. We can just put it out there. And I think it does give a more realistic, transparent view of what it would cost for a parent to have their child participate.
Brent?
Just one comment, pretty much what you're saying, Keith, in our state conference, one of the speakers talked about building trust with the community and clarity and consistency. And I know having kids in things, I didn't feel like in the past as a parent that I really knew what to expect when my kids signed up. Now we know. And some might think it's exorbitant, a little high, but at least clarity and consistency, at least we know what to expect. And so I appreciate that.
I might add, thank you, Brian. I think that's a good observation. One of the things that as I studied all 5 high schools over in Cache, County, and they had these spending plans. Only one out of all of the sports or activities was close to their max. Most of them were $200 to $300 under their max, but it did give a little bit of some flexibility.
Karen?
I try and get mine to work to hover and get that. So I'm grateful that you showed that, and I appreciate your work with that. I do think it will be nice to have it broken down. I was under the opinion that when we did this 2 years ago, that we had kind of already gone to that point.
Well, we did it. It just wasn't, I think this is clearer. I think it's easier to just click on the sport. It was that hovering thing. And anyway, I just think this is a clearer way, easier to put down on a line. It's a line item, a budget, if you will. Whereas the other one, I just kind of put it in, comma, and I had to control everything. This allows the coach, under the direction of a athletic director or an advisor under the direction of a principal, to make sure this is all filled out, completed, and in line with board policy.
So I do have a question. You've mentioned that if somebody had some camps that they wanted to put in there, that they would be listed here. Usually when they go to camps, some of the camps are before the teams have been decided. So is anybody who wants to go to the camp and is fee waiverable there, the cost would be covered?
It would have to be. Now we're talking,
Because I thought,
these would be like Box Elder sponsored camps.
right, but I thought 2 years ago when we were talking about the same issue, we said that the camps weren't covered by fees.
Yeah, as we've got more clarity, camps that are sponsored by Box Elder School District are covered by fees. If there's just a group of people that are going to Utah State to play, that's a whole nother issue. But if it's like we're having a Bear River football camp, and it's going to be July 7th to the 15th, or the 11th, and it's going to cost us $200, you don't have to come. But if you do come and you're on a fee waiver, you could get that waived because it's a on-campus school-sponsored activity.
How many of those do we have? Because I know there's like the high school basketball puts on a camp for younger players. Is that included in that? Is that?
No.
This is like for the teams that are to be participating.
Yeah, this would be incoming 9 through 12.
So how many do we have of that?
Most every sport, I don't know if every sport, most every sport has a kind of a one for their own players, if you will. And it's open to anybody in the school, but there'll be a one for basketball. Soccer will have a camp. Tennis will have a camp. It's pretty common to have just a 3, 4, 5 day camp, but that would be fee waiverable if someone wanted to participate in it.
And I noticed you put on, sorry, Karen, do you have more to say?
I was just gonna follow up and say, I think that we're moving toward being very transparent, and that's always the great thing. Up there it says that we need to look and try to keep to a minimum the fees that we're charging. And I appreciated that we are decreasing our student fees by $30, but if you look at the numbers here, it could increase our activity fees by 170%. That's the max. From our max sport now, which was listed at 300 last year, going up to the 800. So I'm a little concerned about trying to make those two mesh in my mind, trying to keep them at a minimum. And
So I have
it's such a really big jump.
I do have a comment for that. What you're seeing on this year's fees does not include, by the time you do the participation, which is not added in the cell. So you got participation plus the cell plus overnight travel. You're gonna have to add all those up before you do the difference, because I think when you add all those up, you're gonna be closer.
And I did, so I most times do like a 2-night.
If you go to St. George, you're looking at a couple $100.
Plus this.
So there is a risk. I gotta admit, there is a risk. I guess from a competitive standpoint, when I looked at, and I think I showed this to you, and if I could just take 1 second to maybe remind the board about those around us. Again, this is Keith looking at online information. It's as accurate as me looking at online information. I don't think that's real big for you to see.
Better, thank you.
Is that a little bit better? Anyway, it kind of just shows participation fees. And then like for cash, for example, they have a cost included in the sport. They have a transportation fee. That's part of as part of their sport cost as well. When you start looking at all the total prices, Box Elder being the first column, and our 4 neighboring districts to the right of us, you're going to see that we are grossly underrepresented in all of that. I don't know if we have to be equal. I mean, I guess there's, we want to be equal in salaries, but maybe we don't want to be equal in fees in this situation. But that, I guess, is why we chose the number 800. But it would include participation. It would include travel. It would include all of our other unique fees that we have. And it'd all just be in one snapshot, which is kind of what everybody around us is doing as well. So you bring up a valid point, Karen, and it is a question you'll have to decide. Again, if you approve, I'm going to go out and meet with both buildings. I'm going to meet with athletic directors, going to make sure principals and advisors and everybody understands these are the parameters, and we're trying to keep this low, but give you a little flexibility, and recognizing what your desire is of a board is to keep our fees as low as we can, but yet giving some comparability with those around us. So thank you.
And I was just gonna say, if you go back to, because I can't get back to the, but where it had like the sports and activities, and it had like by July 15th,
Oh, yeah.
Can you show that? So for example, like if soccer does a camp, but they're a spring sport, and they do a camp in the summer, will that be?
So that'd probably be, now for this upcoming year, we're going to ask probably these fall sports to get this done a little sooner. But the idea would be if we can flash forward a little bit,
Yeah.
It's 2022 August. Part of your next year's summer would be part of that. But I certainly can say, if you're going to do a summer, we need to put it on here right away.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to figure that out as far as like the summer. how
Yeah,
that
that's a really good question.
But I really like how this is going. And honestly, when my first child, he's a sophomore, when he hit high school, there was sticker shock to everything for me. It was kind of but now that we're in it, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess it is expensive to have kids and if they want to be involved and do things. And now, he's a golfer, and I'm like, golf club, holy cow, no, you cannot have the golf clubs.
And
Get to work.
you've got to buy that Boyle Letterman jacket. Didn't you let her last year?
Yeah, I'm not buying, well, I guess
Come on,
if he
Mom.
wants one. So anyhow, but I think, I think there is an initial kind of intake, but like Connie said, we have people that say, we are parents and we want to be able to spend more in some cases. Now, we're asking our coaches to be frugal. We're asking our coaches to not just because you can go to the max, don't go to the max. And I really appreciate what you said, Keith, about the districts around that most of them were not. That's comforting to me to know that I think, and I trust our coaches and our advisors, but sometimes it is kind of a little bit scary to say, you can do this. But overall, I'm really in favor of it.
President, you ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion.
I'd like to recommend that the Box Elder Board of Education approve the following 2020-23 new district. To approve the fee schedule as noted.
Okay, we have a motion by Connie Archibald
I'll second that.
and a second by Nancy Kennedy to approve the school fees for the 2022-23 school year as has been presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
So we have motion passes. Yes, go ahead. No.
If I could, I just need to tell Keith, thank you. There is a tremendous amount of work that he's put in talking to other districts and meeting with all the coaches in our district and building this Google document from scratch and making it very workable. And he started this process 2 years ago when officially one of his many hats was student services director, and has done a great job. And he was the perfect guy for the job with his experience in our district and that closely still involved. I think you were a coach 10 years ago. So he's been the right guy for the job, and he has put in a lot of work on this thing and did a lot of checking on a lot of those things. So thank you, Keith.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on. We have Gary Allen with approval of new courses. I believe there are 2.
Yes, just a couple classes to be added. We work closely with Utah State, and they have they've approved our instructor for the computer science principles. It's you'll see on your information, but it's a 3-credit course that fills the USU Brent physical science requirement. Remember, one of the things that we tried to do is to make sure that any concurrent enrollment class we have will fit a group. That helps towards that as they enter into the university. They could have a class filled in every one of the general categories. So this one meets that requirement. You can see a description of the class. It is an AB. We're still working out on if it'll be a 2-trimester class. There's a chance that it will need to be that way. It is replacing AP computer programming. The AP presents a real challenge. It's a very rigorous, all of our AP classes are very rigorous and provide a great opportunity, but you have to take that AP exam. The concurrent enrollment will give you that credit for college. It'll have a grade on your transcript. So that's the recommendation for the computer science principles class. The second one has been recommended by from Bear River High School. It's a sports literature and composition class. One of the challenges we have in 12th grade is for the longest time, the only credit was either the USU concurrent enrollment or English 12. And the English 12 just was not a curriculum that was connecting with kids. So a lot of the schools over time have tried to expand that 12th grade offering for their English credit, for their language arts credit, just to give them some other opportunities. So this recommendation is for sports literature and composition. And then you can see again the request there. I would recommend both of these classes be approved as new courses for registration for our upcoming year.
I really enjoyed the literature. I thought, sports literature, Sports Illustrated in class. But in reading through the requirements and the objectives, that looks like a fun class. I mean, there's some real in-depth stuff that I think is going to be a great. And if anybody wants to go into sports writing, I would think this would be a great step in that direction as well. That's some cool stuff.
Super, thank you. And that's the idea, is to find a connection for that 12th grade year, because it's tough. Thank you.
You ready for a motion? I move that we approve the following new courses for the Box Elder School District. CS 130, Foundations of Computer Science, and Sports Literature and Composition.
A second.
So we have a motion by Karen Cronin and a second by Brian Smith to approve the two new courses, the concurrent enrollment. I lost it, computer, and then the sports and literature composition. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
You just shut down.
Just getting ready for the next little thing.
Ah, it's him. That's where it's coming.
Some new concurrent enrollment. I think that will be awesome, and that's great benefit for the families to be able to get that done.
Yeah, I think that's it. And the options of concurrent enrollment, like you can get credit for the things you want to do and not just. So thank you for looking at those courses and making them available, and for those teachers who are willing to teach them. That's.
And just an update really quick on that. We have 5 teachers that are working towards their masters through USU, which will allow us to increase those concurrent classes on campus. And that's been another goal that we've been making, and we do have those that are presently enrolled to do that. And Aaron Crawford, who teaches at Box Elder, he has such a good reputation that USU approved him immediately through his connection with them, and he'll be the teacher that's teaching the computer class.
Do we have, is it possible for students, or do we have students that have got an associate's degree or when they graduate from high school, or are we getting close to that?
Because of we limit those offerings to keep in those general categories. I'm not aware of any. There may be some that are close, but I'm not aware. Shannon, are you aware of any that are close to an associate?
I have a friend who's a junior and she's planning on getting her associate's.
Okay. Just a few, if there are any.
I was talking to Megan Bushnell, and her daughter is close. But she says she needs one more course to do it, and it would be the second, what is it? Is it 2,200 language arts?
It's a
20
language arts.
2,000 language, anyway, something like that. So we teach the 110, but there's the second year that I think needs to be taught for them to actually get the associates. That was what she told me. For what that's.
Well, and I think when that New Century Scholarship kind of folded, that took some of the, I hate to say steam, but so many people were working specifically to get that scholarship and going through them, and when that was not funded and bottomed out, I think that's changed some of the emphasis, because there were so many trying to get their associates by the time they got out, so you get that New Century. But I think that's kind of dwindled somewhat.
I just have a question. I have a lot of relatives over in Rich County. And when we go to their graduations at Rich High School, practically every student there is getting, their degree. So I just wonder, how does that differ from our district? I just always wondered that.
Most of those are doing that on their distance learning. And we, with our trimester schedule and some of the challenges we have not gone that direction, but they offer a whole variety of courses because of their location, and they do that on a broadcast class.
Oh, okay. I just wondered.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have some experience with that, and you're exactly right. They actually have a couple of classrooms that they have full every day, and it's a huge part of their actual curriculum, where ours is more elective, more selective. There's the vast majority of them just take, that's just their culture over there. So it's really pretty cool. Even when I was in North Summit, it seems like the smaller you are, we had the first year we did it, we had 35 graduates out of 90 kids. And so it's pretty impressive. However, they have made it a lot harder. And now in order for kids to do that, I believe they have to take at least one full summer schedule and possibly even two to be able to pull it off. That's what it takes, where you used to could almost do it without just doing it during school time.
Interesting.
Well, and I also have a connection to Rich.
Yeah,
They don't have near the electives we have.
they don't.
And so they're just able to focus on pure, solid stuff to get through, whereas I think we have a much more, a richer and deeper curriculum. Whereas they do get through quickly, but their options are limited, and distance learning is about all they've got. I think there's 10 teachers at the high school at Ridge.
Probably.
So so it's,
Yeah, going to a, yeah. Well, and it is interesting, when you set a scale for science, like when I was going to schools like the small school, you are limited. You can only do so much. And so if they focus on that, then more of, but I think it's great that we're offering those classes, and that even if they don't get an associate's degree, there's a lot of credit and a lot of money being saved for parents to take some of those concurrent enrollment classes and get some credit.
Yeah, and I'm in 3 AP classes. And I took one last year, so even though I'm not, like, I'll still, hopefully, assuming I pass my test, I'll still have a good amount of credits when I graduate. And even if it's a little different than how Rich does it to get their associates, I think, like you're saying with our electives, it's just as fulfilling of a high school experience, even if you're not getting like a different, like the degree at the end of it. Because I considered, like, for a long time, like, I wanted to graduate early and like really like get ahead, but I'm really just where I need to be in terms of experiences I've had and things I've learned, even though I don't have associates. So that's what I think about this.
That's a good perspective, Sean. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our information items. So this is our review of, it's January, so we go through our Board of Education Code of Conduct and commitment.
Board member commitments and
I'm gonna have to start bringing reading lessons. That is pressing to me. Oh, my word. I'll just zoom in. There we go. Commitments and ethics. So that is, we look at this every year and review this policy 1034, what our commitments, our code of conduct is, and then our commitment to the board of member commitments and ethics. So are there any comments or questions on that?
There you go.
No, I refuse.
you want me to pull the computer out here?
I'm going to figure it out. I just have never had to wear any kind of glasses ever, and it's frustrating to me. My
It's
husband is,
humbling, but
he's always had glasses forever, and so I teased him, and now I can't. So okay. So any questions on the Board of Ethics, the Board of Education Code of Conduct, and the commitment ethics? Okay, so that's just information. Review that. I know as board members, we review that, take it seriously, and we are committed to acting and representing our district and our constituents in a positive and ethical way. All right, we're going to turn some time over to Jeremy Young now. He's got some reports for us, the Apple scores, the ACT, and state report cards. And the Apple is our language, right?
Correct.
I'm interested in this one. I want to see how it goes.
And so this is the same presentation I sent to you all in board books. So you have it for reference as well. Is this the best place for audio?
You put an X on the floor.
There you go. And I'll just look at.
Hold on a second. That seemed a little bigger. Do your clicker, does that move you?
Yep,
Okay, good.
that worked. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about 3 different things today. The Apple scores. So the Apple is our DLI assessment that we give to all students 3rd through 9th grade. For DLI, the ACT scores. In future years, I'll be reporting about on the ACT data a lot sooner. I'm not sure why it's so late this year, because we've had the scores and the schools have had the scores for a long time now. But that'll be a fall thing moving forward. And then the state report cards, generally we have come out earlier. These are not the school grading. This is just the accountability report cards, and I'll go over what's included in that, and show you where everyone has access to those, both parents and you as board members. But those generally come out earlier, usually November-ish. This year, due to some complications and some regrading of things, the data was pushed back, so we didn't get those until December. So that's why you're seeing them now in January. So we're going to start with Apple as a reminder. Each grade, each year, they take a different test. And so 3rd, 5th, and 7th graders take an interpersonal speaking test through a microphone, and it's graded by people that listen to it. And then 4th, 6th, 8th, and 9th, they take 3 tests, the writing, reading, and listening subtests. And so you'll see scores reflected on each of those. So in 3rd grade, as we go through, you'll see 2 different types of data. The data on the right will be broken down by language, the single bar graph. On that, this is the average for the district, the average score. The dot is the national average, and then the numerical value of that is located down below. And then I placed a bar to represent the state benchmark. So the state DLI program has set a benchmark that we shoot for with our language acquisition for our students. And so again, this is the district average. The table on the left indicates the number and percentages of students that are below, at, and above that benchmark that the state has set. And so as we go through, you can kind of see where we're at. So this is the 3rd grade data for Chinese and Spanish above the benchmark, and close to the national average. Another thing to consider as we go through this, or to keep in mind, Utah is unique. So the Apple test is given throughout the nation. Utah in its DLI program is unique in the amount that we take a lot more tests than a lot of other places in the nation. And so we test a lot more students. And so traditionally you'll see more of, when we're compared to the nation of the younger levels, those are more likely heritage language speakers that we're compared against. And so a lot of times you'll see us as a district and as a state below that national average. And then as we go on, you'll see us surpass the national average. A lot of times that's because the higher you go up in grade, then you start having students that take the test as part of a Spanish 1 or a Spanish 2 class. So it's their first year in the language, and they're taking the Apple to kind of measure where that's at. And so we're compared against different types of people. So just something to keep in mind is some context for that data. So 4th grade, our tables, where we're at as a whole. So when we look at the table data, this is combining all of our language, both Chinese and Spanish, in all the schools throughout the district, where they're at in this, and then it's broken down a little bit in the next one. And so you can see 4th grade, 86, 87, 80. Chinese, you can see 4th grade, well above the national, or the benchmark, approaching the national average. And 4th grade Spanish, same type of thing, a little closer to the national average. Listening is almost always higher, because it's the first thing you pick up as they acquire language. Writing usually trails behind last as that form of production. 5th grade, you can see the table and the bar broken out. Again, above the benchmark, close to the national average. So we start to see, in Spanish particularly, surpassing the national average. Spanish is more commonly taken as a heritage language outside of the state in school than Chinese. So as we get older, you'll see more of those tests, and you'll see that national average drop lower. And then 90% pass the speaking, which is fantastic. It's really high. 6th grade, we're 80, 70, and 60 with the writing.
Can I ask a question? So this is both languages. Do they
It's both
do
languages.
Chinese writing as well?
Yes,
So that's pretty challenging.
extremely. Yeah. And then you can see, so here's Chinese, the presentational writings on the left. So it's even difficult. Our average is still pretty close. One thing, and when we get to it, towards the end of the Apple data, I have some historical data that shows the last 3 years, kind of a comparison, and you'll see what I kind of consider an effect of our shutdown, and specifically last year having a shorter class period really impacts language acquisition because it really limits the exposure to the language, because students, especially Chinese, don't get that exposure to the language side of the school. And so when we limit that exposure and that interaction with the language, we do see an impact. And I think that's something that's reflected in our data this year. 6th grade Spanish. So here's our 7th grade, which is a speaking test. And I think this is probably our most pronounced impact that we see is in the 7th grade speaking. Because they went from half of their day as 5th graders, and then last year into 6th grade on a shortened schedule, really trimmed down the amount of language that they were with, that they were exposed to.
You might go back to 6th grade Chinese.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time the benchmark is below the national average.
Mhm.
I don't know why in this particular one, why the trend is that the national average is below benchmark.
It's that same sort of thing that I think that we start to see. The benchmarks go up consistently for the state. You just see every year it kind of goes up one level. I think that we start to see the national averages drop with these. Is like I said, as students get older, you have more first-time exposure with the language, like taking it as an elective class in a secondary school and taking the Apple, as opposed to in the younger grades, they're taking it because they have heritage exposure or heritage development in the language.
I was just wondering if I'm reading that wrong.
Nope, and that's right. And so, like here, when we come to the 7th grade, you'll see it's below again. And you start to see that, especially in Chinese, that drops below.
Jeremy, could you explain when you say heritage language, does that mean it's
So-
someone's coming that's a native?
So they grew up speaking that, yeah. So heritage language is another word for like a native language. But that's
Thanks.
what it's referred to as a heritage language. So 7th grade, you see Spanish, Chinese. 59% overall on pass the speaking. Our 8th grade, 77, 70, 46 in writing. Writing in particular, this grade is difficult. And we kind of see that traditionally. 8th grade Chinese, again, you'll notice the national average well below the benchmark. And despite that, we still have, we're still quite successful in AP credit, if we were to measure that by our 9th grade students that are taking the AP. We talked about that in October, but we have a very high percentage pass rate of the AP test for these DLI kids. Eighth grade Spanish. Very close to the benchmark, well above the national average. And again, we see this more because we see more elective Spanish classes that use the Apple throughout the nation, which lowers that national average down. And the ninth grade is the last year that they take it. 67%, 81, and 56. Our ninth grade Chinese. And ninth grade Spanish. So here's our historical data. I have a Chinese slide and a Spanish slide. You can kind of see some trends a little bit in just overall in general. Some of the tests or some of the based on some of those dips. So one that you'll see or notice is, you know, sixth grade reading is lower as a general rule than all of the others. And part of that is curriculum, and part of that is the move to the intermediate school and starting to figure that out. And so it just, there's a lot of different things that come into play as to why those might be lower. We look at this, like I said, we can kind of gauge and affect a little bit of what school looked like in these classes for the last year and a half, in missing, you know, a trimester of exposure and practice with the language, and then a shortened class time last year.
Jeremy,
Yes.
2019, is that the fall of 18 and the spring of 19?
So no, that is the fall of 19, the spring of 20.
So when did we go into shutdown? I just.
2020.
March of 20.
So that was,
That,
so the blue is pre-shutdown.
we had a full year in that blue, right?
Yes. So that is our
Is that
normal
our, is
date.
that our rationale? That apparently to me seemed like we scored better.
Yeah, and so if you look at 2020, the 2020 or the red graph, though that data, so those
That's when we
students
shut down in March.
tested after having a trimester of remote learning, and then about another trimester of shortened learning is that one. And then the next one, the yellow, is 2 trimesters of shortened day learning and 1 trimester of regular.
So we kind of got it.
Plus whatever they lost, you know, like.
Yeah.
kind of-
Right. So yeah, you're catching up, you know, and so you can compare a little bit, but you can see that. But there definitely was an impact.
That's
Is
pretty,
there,
pretty
is there,
graphic display.
is there a state graph that compares?
I don't have access to state data, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not something they publish.
Just talk about it.
Yeah.
Here comes.
And then here's the Spanish. We see a less pronounced impact, I think.
Remind me what IL is.
IL is listening, interpersonal listening. So presentational writing, interpersonal listening, interpersonal reading, and speaking. So your third, fifth, and seventh are speaking. They don't have any. So those are just conversational. Any other questions about the Apple data? Okay. And just this week, we finished compiling all this data and sending it to schools. And so parents will be getting their reports coming home about how their individual students have done. Probably the end of this week or the first of the next. We just sent those home yesterday with
So for
principals.
CLI, you mentioned that they're doing the 8th and 9th grade.
Correct.
What classes do they take between 10 and 11 and 12?
They take bridge classes is what they're called. So it's essentially a concurrent enrollment class that for language credit in that language. They're called bridge classes though. So that if they pass that AP test in the 9th grade and then they, in the 10th, 11th and 12th, pass the bridge class, essentially the idea is that they graduate with enough credits to have a minor in that language.
And do we have teachers that can teach those bridge classes?
Yes, we do. Well, they facilitate, and the university professors are the actual teachers, but we have facilitators that work in conjunction with them.
How many students do we have currently? I mean, because I know we're not very many have reached that point yet. Like, how many continue with the bridge classes after they do the AP? Do we know that?
I don't know. Do you know how many
We barely took the ninth
students?
grade the first time last year.
Spanish bridge class, the first Spanish bridge class, I'm not sure how much, because that was the smallest cohort. So we probably have around 50-ish.
But that's what I'm asking. So the first bridge class is this year,
Is in 10th grade was last year.
was last year.
Last year's Spanish.
So-
So they're
so-
11th, they're
So
juniors this year.
They're in their second year.
Their
of bridge,
second,
And then Chinese will be their first year.
But also those,
Did you find that number?
just be interested in the percentage. I mean, I never thought, just like how many are sticking with it from
Yeah.
beginning to end
yeah.
would be interesting to me.
And then the other thing, only one bridge course is offered each year. And so as they come in, so next year when our oldest group will be seniors, they'll be taking the same bridge course as the juniors and sophomores who are taking that same course, because only one is offered per year. And so it's just on a rotating basis, so just one class.
So my nephew in Davis County is doing a bridge class. He's reading Don Quixote in the original Spanish as his bridge. Especially at Christmas.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great.
Is there a plan? Are we using this data to make any adjustments, or what's the plan of how to use this data?
The data is really used at kind of the school level. So they have it broken down by teacher and can compare teacher to teacher and build upon strengths, especially school to school. At Foothill, they collaborate within the state and use the state DLI resources to support those teachers. It's a little harder in that aspect because there's such a high turnover. With the Chinese, we have our Chinese teachers can only stay for a certain amount of time, whereas we try to build in some more long-term teachers and have better success with the Spanish at being able to hire teachers that can stay and live here long-term. And so we get more traction, I guess, and see more of an impact of supporting teachers and involving them in PLC practices to build their capacity and their effectiveness. And so we use it that way. We use it to support individual students. They look at so they'll take the data now and start to build out programs to intervene and offer support to the individual students who might be behind or struggling with specific aspects of the language. For example, one thing that we did at ACYI, we used the Apple data to create another class that was like an intervention class of students who were behind that needed extra support with the reading aspect of Chinese and had them sign up for an additional class as an elective to give them more exposure and more time on language and more smart. Those sorts of things are how they use the Apple data.
Is this the principal and teachers that are working together on that?
Yeah, primarily. Yep.
So Jeremy, on the bridge class in the high school, is that like one trimester or two, or how does it work?
I'm not sure how long the bridge classes are. Do you know how long they are?
What do you mean?
How many semesters, trimesters?
They do two.
Two tries.
They do two tries.
Yeah.
Do two tries.
So is it the same every year?
Yes.
Same.
Well, there's three bridge classes. And they won't always be, it doesn't matter which order they kids take them at. They just, like, whatever course they're in now, 3116, I think it is, the 3116, 117. It doesn't matter which order they take them.
And that's why you end up with the seniors, juniors, sophomores all in the same class, because it's just one per year is offered.
So they're not taking the same class, but they're with the same group. the bridge classes rotate, is that what I understood?
Yeah, so there's 3 courses that they'll rotate through 3 years. And so by the time you reach the end, you'll have had all 3.
Yeah, this is just.
And those jump up to a 2,200 level.
Yeah, those are
Status. So
sophomore level.
That gives them into that next level, and then they, I think they end up need to take 1 or 2 more classes, and you have the minor. But
It's
they're
really
just
close.
Really close, but they do up to that next level.
Yeah, these are like a minor.
Yeah.
That, we looked it up and there's 40 Spanish kids and 20 Chinese kids, about so
In the 10th grade or is it?
in the bridge class. There's some AP, because if they don't pass the AP as a ninth grader, they can take the AP again as a 10th grader, join bridge, and just got 2 years of bridge. So they just respect our couple, it's really good to have 2 kids. You know what I mean?
Thank
There's kids that are trained to take that over again, so.
Spanish is
It's finally hitting.
juniors. And then the
Chinese.
Chinese.
Chinese sophomores. That's where we're
Next
at.
year, Bear River High
start.
will have a sophomore
Bridge.
Spanish
They'll
cohort.
start the bridge up there.
Yeah.
Right now. Thank you.
Yeah, so the North End Spanish will take the AP test at the end of this year. This one will have North and South
In
AP.
2023, we should have quite a few still by literacy kids,
We should.
right? Because got those good laws.
Yeah. On a different note, this is an aside, but I'm proud of it. We have an early graduating EL student from Sunrise that will graduate early and graduate with a seal of biliteracy, which is
Which is so.
an awesome thing.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm excited about that. I had to plug that. That's a good one. Seal of biliteracy. Okay, ACT data. This was given back to principals in early fall. Again, I'm not sure why it's so late on your schedule. I'm going to work with Marcy to have this much earlier next year.
So you can join us more often.
All the time.
Very good.
Just looking for ways to come to board meetings.
It's a highlight.
Okay, and so here, these are the kind of what the reports will look like. Yeah, and again, you can follow along on the handout, or you can look up here. This top line is the state average. The second line is our district average, and then the next 3 are our 3 schools. These mean scores are your average score for the ACT score there in the black. And so you can see kind of where we're at for, this was the spring testing of our juniors. And so this is not anyone who wanted to take the ACT overall. This is just when we gave it to all of our juniors. And that way it's more comparable when we want to compare it to the state, because it's not elective. It's we test everybody and the state tests everybody. And so it's kind of a little more comparable to see as a measure of where we're at. And so you can see the state average 19 or mean score for a composite 19.6. Our district is 19.4, and then the 3 high schools break out there. You can see the number of students there on the left underneath each school as well, of how many took it,
Is it required that the juniors take the ACT?
unless they opt out
Unless they opt, okay.
What if they choose?
or
just
or,
get up so
or
bad?
don't.
Yeah, I
Well,
was gonna say,
that's kind of how they opt out.
I was just wondering what participation percent we have.
We do try and catch up with them. We do build in a makeup
We-
day
yeah,
and round them up one more time.
Yeah, so we have, because the ACT is online, so it's not your book and your paper pencil bubble sheet like we all had. So it's all done online on computers. And we generally schedule that early in the window to allow us a longer window. We have until the very end of the window to do makeups. And so we work to get as many as we can. It was a little harder last year.
How many?
I could look it up. I can get that information for you. Yeah.
How many states do they test all juniors? Isn't that Utah one of the few that tests?
We are very few. So that's not common.
When-
We're not
Compare that,
alone.
It's really quite a different.
Yeah. Yeah, this is best compared within the state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when you expand outside of the state, it's more of an elective test. And so we're not testing everyone in terms of averages. Once we break it down by subject area, so we'll go through the 4 subjects. Each subject has a benchmark, which I've indicated with that red line. The benchmark is set by ACT, and that indicates if a student scores at that benchmark, they have a 50% chance of getting a C or higher on the equivalent college entrance course. So for this English, if they score an 18 on the English component, they would have a 50% or a 75% chance of scoring a C or higher, a 50% chance of scoring a B or higher on freshman English, on English 1010. And so that's kind of what that benchmark means in terms of it's not necessarily a goal that we're shooting for. It's just, this is what ACT is through their analytics and following up with students, how they score, and then how they score in coursework once they enter the university, the likelihood of passing those courses.
Jeremy, I just noticed the N number.
N is the number of students that took the test.
So I would presume 18. What do we have, Keith, in our junior class? 900, 9 something?
Between the 2 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Within-
we're 90%.
Yeah, we're pretty close to 90%, probably. So yeah, so if you look at how many seniors we have, you've moved away from our.
He's gonna find that out.
All right.
Ask him a question.
Oh.
He was looking, he didn't realize.
So, you asked me.
So how many seniors do we have, and we'll compare that against.
Well,
our
here you go. Are you ready?
Seniors this
Now
year.
that you ask, again, this is probably off a little bit. So juniors, we have 904.
That's this year.
Oh, seniors 916.
916.
There was
818 tested last
I
year.
apologize. I'm thinking, I can get that, but I'm kind of stuck here. I gotta get another device. Sorry, Jeremy.
No, you're okay. So just under 90% of our juniors tested, which is lower than normal. But again, we had a lot of students who had kind of moved online last year, or who were just, we had more no-shows last year than we traditionally do for testing. And like we said, we tried to clean up as much as we can, but when it turns to kind of, people quarantine or staying home if they're sick or things like that, then we ended up with a lower percentage than normal.
I have a success story with that. I had a mother call me and tell me that her son was not planning on going to college, but when he got his ACT score back, that he wasn't planning on taking, but did, that he was really excited because he thought I do hope. So
That's great.
Great.
that was one of those ones that are fun to share.
That's wonderful. English, in terms of reaching this benchmark score, English has the lowest benchmark score. But also we see throughout the state and the district a higher percentage of students reaching that benchmark score in English than any of our other subcategories. So the reading, you notice the benchmark moves up to 22. I'm not certain what course in college they consider equivalent to reading, because the English is the English 1010 or freshman English. So I don't know what that corresponds to. But you can kind of see where we're at as a district, really close to the state, 0.1, away from the state average in terms of a mean score.
Maybe I could just chime in on that. One of the interventions that we're trying to do is with our 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders with pretty intensive reading intervention from our Schools Cube consultants. So we have that in both ends of the county, and we're having pretty good assessment where they're at in the intervention piece. So we hope we'll see some, especially our 9th grade, and then going on for these. So we've addressed that one and trying to do some intervention.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a couple of years and anticipate that that'll, once those students reach 11th grade and take take the ACT, but we'll see a difference there in that score.
That'd be reading and English as well.
Likely,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, reading kind of covers everything, right? Like in college, there's a lot of textbooks that you read, even if you're like in psychology class or different classes. Maybe that's not a specific course, but overall.
Yeah. ACT math scores, state 19.3. Our average last year was a 19. And the same mean of both high schools. And then the science, the benchmark jumps up again to 23. And 19.9 for the state, 19.8 for our district. And then this is our district averages ACT scores for the past 6 years. You will notice that the 2020 ACT score, remember that was the year that only essentially half of our district took it, because we didn't get the other half, and then so that half received vouchers. So one school, one high school received vouchers to be able to take it, but we don't have everybody take it, and so it's generally the students who want an early shot at taking it are the ones that took that, and that we talked about it last year, but that's why that inflated rate in everything except really science. See, English also, we improved again upon that. Kind of gives you an idea of where we're at.
I'm just saying math is low this year, but as a math teacher, I know that concepts build on each other, and when we've lost learning and had less time.
Right. So yeah.
That makes that.
When you look at the loss of learning and trying to catch up from that, it's not surprising that we're behind on something that builds on itself as much as math does. I wasn't surprised to see that either.
From another former.
As a math teacher, yeah. Yeah, that's something that I anticipate catching back up or approaching that trend line again as students have more time to remediate those concepts and fill in those gaps that they came in from missing a trimester of school, or a trimester of direct instruction, I should say. Any other questions on the ACT scores? Okay, the last one is school report cards. This is linked to accountability. So the state sends out school report cards every year for every school and the district. Those are accessed on the state data gateway. I also have links to that on the assessment website. So if you go on our school website under assessment, over on district resources, there's a drop down for accountability. There's a Utah school report card link that will take you right to the data gateway. And then you just type in our school or our district or any district or school within the state, and you can see those. They're all available to the public. And then there's also an FAQ document that the state school board puts out that answers and explains a little bit about what it is. I'm going to go over briefly what's indicated in there, and then some of our district data. And then if you have questions or want some more information specifically on any of those programs or on the data that's presented there, I can get that to you as well. Essentially, what's included on the state report card is English learner progress and proficiency that's based on the WIDA access test, which is the English language test. Achievement, which comes from two different places. It comes from our RISE test from 3rd through 8th graders, and then it comes from our Utah Aspire Plus test for our 9th and 10th graders, is where we get achievement data. Graduation rate is percentage of students graduating within 4 years. College and career readiness, this is those who are in a C or better on an AP or a concurrent enrollment or complete a CTE pathway are counted in that. And then post-secondary enrollment is a percentage of students who enroll in college in the state of Utah within 1 year of graduation. I'll point out those last three things, the graduation rate, college career readiness, and post-secondary are a year behind everything. And so when we look at the graduation rates on these reports, it's from the graduation of 2020 as opposed to 2021. And so it'll be the graduation right after the shutdown. And so if that looks lower than it should be, that's why. And our data from this year looks a lot better than that. EL adequate progress. So a couple of things to note, just comparing our state average to our district average for EL progress is really wonderful. We're seeing some great things happening with EL, and we're really starting to get some programs in place, some curriculum in place, some systemization of data in a way that is really supporting our EL students. And for a couple of years now, we're really growing in that area. Specifically, since we hired our EL coach, Jenny Cross, the work that she's done has been phenomenal, and we've seen a significant impact in our EL students and how they're growing. Anywhere it's an ND, they had fewer than 10 students, and so they're not counted, but those students are counted in our district average, and so that's usually a better indicator as far as percentages of where we're at when you look at the
So
district.
Bear River High School does not have 10 kids?
That year, last year did not.
Well,
They do this year. We've added a lot this year. Actually, a lot of newcomers in our district this year. Student achievement. So when you go in to the student achievement on the schools, you'll have to select either K-8 or 9-10 or high school, I think is what it says. And they're different data sources. And so as you look at those, you can toggle between those two. This is the Utah Aspire Plus data, our district average in English, math, and science, and kind of where we are compared to the state from that assessment. Really pretty close to the state everywhere.
That percent proficient.
it's
And the-
interesting, our ACP English was really down, but here our achievement, it's the highest we've got, which is really interesting.
Well, the benchmark, we were above the benchmark for the ACT in English, the state benchmark.
Yeah, but it was our lowest number.
Lowest number, right?
Yeah, of
All
all
the actual score.
yeah.
Right, but yeah, and it's not a proficiency because the benchmark is the lowest as well. We were higher. We had more students at benchmark and English than any other subject, even though the grade itself, the number itself was lower, with the benchmark being 18 as opposed to 22 or 23, then they're essentially, it matches this from that perspective. And then our RISE scores, so I presented the RISE scores in the fall as well. This is really just, we took all of that RISE data and lumped it up into all of the grades in these three averages and compared to the state. And so this is the data that you'll see. You can go on to the school report cards and look at school by school and see this exact data as well. And then post-secondary readiness, again, all of this data, this post-secondary data comes from the 1920 school year. And so it's, remember that as we look at, we notice our graduation rate, 81% compared to the state average of 88. I'm not really sure why we were so different that year on that, but I do know that it's come up significantly last year. for a couple of things. Mostly it's things that are happening at the school level that they're working with to try and increase the graduates. So a little bit of it is clean up from when students transfer out or move somewhere else as opposed to drop out of school, depending on how those are coded by the registrars and when they're coded by the registrars. Sometimes they count as a dropout and affect this graduation rate, even though they aren't necessarily a dropout. If they move out of state, for example, and it's not reported where they went in time, so those sorts of things. And so sometimes we're better now at being accurate about that data, about where they're actually going, to be a true reflection of who's graduating and who's dropping out or doing something else. We also have a number of these students that transfer to adult ed and graduate as adults, and that doesn't count to our graduation rate because they've transferred out of our typical secondary education. ACT is the percentage of students that have score an 18 or higher on the ACT, and then the readiness coursework is what I mentioned before about the AP, the CTE pathways, and the concurrent enrollment classes, a C or higher in those. Any questions about the school report cards?
So you may have answered it, I may not have caught it. On the four-year graduation rate, the district average of 81, is that higher or lower from previous years? How do we compare against ourselves?
So that's actually about the same from the 2 years before that 81. The state average varies a little bit that way as well, but those 2 years are pretty consistent for those 2 years. When you actually go to the reports on the data gateway, you can click for more details and it will give you a graph of the 3 years, so 2 years previous to it, and you can do that for each school, for the district and the state. But our district has been pretty consistent at that 81 those 2 years before that.
Any more questions for Jeremy? It's a lot of data.
That's
A lot of good data, though.
It's a lot of information. That's another reason why I think next year you'll see me more often, is because I'll come with smaller chunks of data. And it's not as much to, here's the fire hose. Okay.
Thank you for all that work putting those together. Okay, we're going to jump ahead for just a minute because Marla is here and we don't want to have her wait till forever to get to that. So we're going to jump down to this I2 board member boundaries with the redistricting, and that's
Where would you like me to go?
just right up here if that's, so Superintendent, you want to start us and then maybe go over explanations?
Well, every so often, certainly with the census, there's they look at the population and they then do district boundaries for a variety of things. This particular year, there was the Utah legislature had a committee and they reboundaried the legislative committee lines. And along with that, it's the county's responsibility to look at the population and then form boundaries for school board members. And so Marla is here to help us understand how they came up with those things and the fact that we're in a unique situation since the boundary line changed. And she's done some work for us and explain code and what we have to do from this point forward. I have talked to Marla for a bit and don't know the timeline. Probably the only thing is as she explains that. So with that, Marla, do you want to talk to us about how this all came about?
You bet. You mind if I sit?
Absolutely.
I have some pretty crummy knees.
No, you're good.
So I'd rather sit than topple over. So.
Yeah.
Well, every 10 years, we go through this process. And this year was a little different than usual. we have had some growth and the legislature had a redistricting committee that was put into place, but then they drew their own maps and chose their maps over the committee. And so everything took a little longer this year. We didn't even get the maps until the end of November, which we usually have them by March, April, May timeframe usually. So it gave us about 30 days to put everything together. And I'm sorry, Brian.
If you just run it through his other side of his yard,
I know.
run it behind all those guys.
The first thing I did was just, okay, so-and-so lives here, so-and-so lives here, are we okay? And then I came to Brian's house and they cut the house district line from 1 and now 6, used to be 29, right in front of Brian's house. So it has caused now that he will be in the same district as Nancy. And so what that happens if a board member ends up in the same district is they have to, you guys can choose how you do it. You draw lots basically of who will represent District 5. And then the other person will serve in an at-large position until their term is over. And so, and then it leaves a vacancy in District 6. And so you would need to appoint someone at least for the end, till the end of 2022. And there will be a 2-year term election in November for that board member for the number 6.
Is there a time frame on that? I mean, generally, if the board member resigns, I think the board has 30 days.
Yeah, I don't know exactly on that. I mean, I can certainly do some searching in code. Yeah, or have your legal counsel or something. I hate to lead you astray, so.
Sure.
So, but I would assume that it would be soon.
Yeah.
When I go through, I was hoping, like the last time we did this 10 years ago, we were able to kind of get together and I had like 3 different options that we could kind of choose from, but we didn't have the time to do that this time, and I apologize for that. There are a lot of differences in precincts. Utah code does not allow us to have a precinct more than 1,250 people. And so you may have noticed that some things were split, like Willard was split in half. South Willard was split in half. So they now have 2 precincts instead of 1. Honeyville was split, like we created a new precinct in Tree Mountain. So it gives you an idea of the growth and kind of the locations where the growth is happening. Manaway is always our monster. We can never figure out getting their numbers to jive with someone. But Manaway will be close probably in a couple of years to be split as well because of the growth that's up there. The district line used to go to 700 north in River City. Now it's up a couple blocks at 500 north and it kind of jiggity jags all the way up to Brian's house. And so, yeah, so there's some significant changes to precincts there. You may have noticed that Brigham City 11 usually is on the east side. Well, they kind of cut all those precincts apart. So now Brigham City's kind of been kicked to the other side of town. So Brigham City 11 is down by Brigham City 1. That Brigham City 1 was split into 2 also. So that's kind of what we were up against. What we did is took the total population, divided it by the 7 districts to get a target number. And then once we have that target number, and this is the same way we did it 10 years ago, I figured within 500, give or take, if it's less or more, then we could be kind of in the range of having equal population in each district. And so you can kind of see that. I know it's super tiny.
Let's see if I can blow it up just a little bit, but
And we looked up where there's going to be some new subdivisions and different things like that, so we could see where growth may be happening. And so some of the lower numbers, we've potentially those numbers will grow very rapidly, actually. You probably noticed also, we used to have some really small precincts out west, and now we've combined that into one big precinct. The reason for that is we had some precincts that may have 10 of them, and maybe had 10. It's really hard to keep their ballot anonymous or secretive when you only have 10 voters in a precinct. And so we have combined, so it's now a Box Elder West precinct, which includes all of those like Park Valley, Grouse Creek, Clear Creek, Yost, and some of it kind of goes from about West Corinne on back. Trying to think where else there was some significant changes, but there are quite a few changes to our precincts and their boundary lines. Hopefully you all received the shared file today. If you can't open it or something, let me know. I do have a few paper copies tonight that I think I only brought like 5, but if you want us to print you a paper copy of the boundaries of
So when I tried to open it, that you need permission, was that all, was that everybody has to give permission?
I got the same one.
Oh, no.
Were you granting permissions?
I granted to, I think all of you and.
Okay.
Is this the map or is this the?
Yeah, it had 3 maps. There, the school board maps are in there, and then all of our precinct maps are in there.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I was like, I could see it, I could open it, so.
We have such a large geographic county that the maps, you know, in order to get one to read, is to decide about. So, but you should be able to zoom on some of them. If you can't tell what the roads are, let us know. Our folks in the GIS department are still a little new, so they're learning a lot.
The next couple of days to find out what that one that is in 6, is that or 5, the new one? 6.
6.
And then find out what's, so we can advertise that for being students. Apply.
Something I found interesting this week is the legislature is actually running a bill, and maybe you've heard about it. I haven't read it yet. They have a bill that's going to, based on population, maybe increase the size of school boards. So I thought maybe that would be something you're interested in as well. I don't know if our county would be at that threshold or not, because I haven't read it. But that might be something. I think it's SB. I took a picture of it. Let's see.
I think we're just one of the few that just go with the 10,000. That's the current 5 to 7. So I'll be curious to.
It's SB 78.
You know who's running that?
Anderegg.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of just a little bit in a nutshell. Do you guys have questions for me? I mean, I can ramble on forever about elections.
Well, it increases our costs. We'll have to send a new member to state and national meetings and push one more chair in here, and I mean, it's.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think,
Both Brian and Nancy just ran. Right?
Yeah.
So you got
Yeah,
3
we've
years
got 3
Yeah.
years.
right now.
We've got 3 years where we're gonna have 8 people. So,
in my mind, and it's, I mean, I've been at the county for a really long time, but I think about, and maybe like 20 years ago, that we may have had this situation. That was similar to that when they did redistricting, but I can't tell you how long ago, but something in my mind says it was that we did have to go through something like that.
So here's my question. When you say we have to draw like lots or like, we need to decide that, because as soon as we decide that, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. We can still post for the appointment of a new one because it's that district that's going to be. represented. But when you say lots, is there like, can they just say like, I'd like to represent it, or I'm happy to do that large, or do we really
Yeah, I
have to
think
draw
you could
lots?
do that. It-
Or flip it.
Flip a coin, draw something out of a hat. We've had some ties before in city elections, and that is what they've had to do. It says exactly the same thing as to draw lots. And so there, I know Honeyville, not, I might have been 2 years ago or whatever, they, one just decided that the other, to support the other one, and that was fine. And they had a 3-way tie in the next election in Honeyville. It was just, it was so, never, ever happened. And so they drew names out of a hat on that one. So it's completely your option of what you want to do. And
And how soon do we need to do that? Is that the same?
so the redistricting has to be completed and approved by January 31st statewide. And so I would guess that you would have time after that to do that. Our maps and boundaries will be approved in commission meeting next Wednesday. So after that, that's kind of your official game, I guess, to then go from there, so.
All right, I was just wondering, does the doing of the lots, does that have to be done like an official meeting, or because it be, can it be done in the superintendent's office, or how does that work?
I would think that you could do it anywhere, but, and then just approve it at your meeting.
Oh, okay.
I would imagine your appointment needs to be done in an open meeting.
Very interesting stuff.
It's pretty stressful sometimes, you know,
It is
but,
for you, yes.
but it's good. And, you know, I was just hoping it would just all be smooth, all the numbers would be the same. And it just doesn't work out that way.
Well, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And doing that.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the board? About this? No? Well, we appreciate your time and your effort, and we will.
Well, I'm gonna leave these paper ones.
Okay, yeah.
So I think there might be 5, and then there's at least 8 or 9 of the actual school board boundaries. And then if you want, there's the aerial view of where the line cuts off in front of Brian's house. So you guys can pass those out however you
Okay.
want, and
Thank you.
please holler if you have any other questions, if I can help you with anything. So appreciate you all. You guys are awesome. Every person in this room is just awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. We
You're welcome.
appreciate you being-
I'll do some, Rod and I will do some investigating the next couple of days. I wanted to have this meeting prior, and then we'll let you know ASAP what we need to do timeline wise as far as the lot drawing and the appointment of a new person.
Well, and I would say the sooner the better with the appointment, because then they have to decide by March if they want to file again
Yeah.
to run, you know.
Exactly.
So I guess if they're willing to be on it for a month, they're probably willing to be on it for 2 years, but just,
Well, they would
You
be
never
on,
know, they
they'd
might
be
be
on
around.
until January, but then they'd have to run,
then
right?
they'd have to run again.
March.
Yeah, so you file in March and the election's in November
Yeah.
for, to start again, so.
Yep.
Just, you know, they get on and they think we're all crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so- Okay. All right, let's jump back up to our monthly financial report from Rod.
When we get there, I've been jumping around with you. Okay. So everything is comparable for this time of year. We're basically where it should be. We have a few. I set the budget last year and I started budgeting in April-ish time frame, so things changed. We had another COVID, we had
COVID money come out and some things happen there. So you'll see on page 2, I've highlighted in yellow how we've had some spending that I didn't budget for, which was ESSER 2, which is COVID money. Usually I get a property insurance estimate before budgets come in, and it was late this year, so property insurance costs were a little higher than what I estimated. We found out that if we didn't hurry up and order buses, we wouldn't be able to get them for the next school year. So we ordered buses earlier than we have the last few years. So that next yellow one down on page 3 is, we ordered about $1.6 million worth of buses. We also have been growing quite a bit, especially in our preschool busing, and prices of buses are going up next year. And we happen to have we had an opportunity to buy a couple more buses at a big discount. And so I did take that opportunity. And so we actually did spend more than what I planned on budgeting. We'll have to budget that in next year, but I think we're going to need it based on how fast some of our bus routes are increasing. Then if you go down to page 5, we did bring in the donations from the foundation we had a donation for Box Elder High School scoreboards, and the donation so far for the turf. We brought those in. We have $160,000 we brought in for Bear River High School on turf, and the difference on that, I guess, I don't think it was quite 80. I think we had something else in there, but about $80,000 for scoreboards.
What are
For
the
Box Elder High School. A new video scoreboard at Box Elder High School. If you've been to any games, you'll notice it's up and running. And then the same thing on a football field. It's a new video scoreboard. I don't think he wants to make a big deal out of it, but it's a Clark Davis donation. So, yeah. Somewhat. And then if you go down to page 6, that yellow marking is the turf and the scoreboards both, but most of that is the turf at Bear River High School that I didn't see coming when I budgeted. So we'll be able to adjust the budget for that. And then we had some, we increased, I think I told you about this, we increased the number of lunch tables so kids could social distance better for lunch. And because of some growth in some of the schools. So those adjustments all be made in the next budget, and they're all, I've already accounted for the funds, and we'll be okay. They're not going to cause us to have any shortages. Most of it's money that we have in or coming in. So that's all I have.
Great, thanks. Are there any questions for Rod? Thank you.
Oh, I do have, I'm sorry. This is our debt books that you get every year. And I'm sorry, I don't have the chocolate covered peanuts to hand out with them, but we'll have to get Alex up here and have him bring his bridge mix for us. But that, this just shows this includes the debt for Golden Spike Elementary, and you'll see it in yellow in here. He's put the total debt, and it shows when the last payments are. We do have a small payment in 2029 which is the final payment on our bond. It's about 1.5 million instead of 3 million. You'll see that's the last one there. And I can just let you look through that, and should you have questions, you're welcome to call me on it.
Great.
Here, you guys look at it all again.
Okay. All right, our next item is board committee reports, and I don't think we've had any board committee meet between the last. Does anybody have anything that I'm not aware of? Okay.
Hey, did I? Oh, sorry, I got confused. I thought COVID was before that. I
Oh, okay.
apologize.
So, yeah, COVID update. Superintendent, you wanna?
Well, you've probably seen on the news, the quarantine guidelines and the regs are changing fast and furiously. And today we had our weekly Bear River Health Department meeting, and I could not attend that. And Keith was able to be there, so I've asked him if he wouldn't mind reporting what he was able to glean from today's meeting, because it does change weekly.
So maybe I would just give you a little flavor here. This is something that's on, our COVID, and you can get an accurate count. A new nuance that's happening now is that home tests are becoming more and more available. And so when people say, I'm just going to go get a home test, that doesn't register with Bear River Health Department. Prior to that, if they got it at the hospital or they got it at the Bear River Health Department, clearly you could track it. They would have a way to double check our numbers. But with the with home tests now coming into place, trying to keep this in the air is becoming more and more and more challenging. So when I say these are our numbers based on those that we can actually verify. And, we've now instructed our secretaries, our administrators, when a parent calls in and says, hey, he's tested positive, the question is that a home test or was it at the Bear River Health Department? Just so that we kind of get everybody in these numbers, because the health department doesn't know about home tests. And so anyway, I wanted to just drill down here. All of these different numbers are not as important as, I will tell you this. On Monday morning, when I came to school, and I always kind of get a weekend update, that total was 12 with 5 adults. It is on us like stink right now. It is rough. And we've got a lot of teachers that are out, and we have a lot of teachers that are sick. We have students that are obviously, across the state. I haven't seen this report, but the Bear River Health Department mentioned that there are 8 pages of individual schools that have gone to test the state across the state of Utah. So again, that number is 30. So
It's not a percentage, it's just a.
well, it's 2% for every school. Well, it's 30, but it's 2% for everything over 1,500 students, which doesn't apply to us. So really our number is 30. Box Elder Middle School just today just started to increase. There are people that are having a tough time getting tests. And so a lot of people I think are just staying home. So I really think the damage, if you will, is much greater, but it is causing a shortage of just teachers are out. I mean, I really do. I feel so bad for our secretaries, our teachers, our administrators. It is a Sudoku every morning to try to say, like the last 2 days, we've had 20 to 22 unfilled sub jobs. Like I'll just tell you, prior to the pandemic, we had a 98.7% fill rate, which means you might have a couple that didn't fill each day, if that. But in general, we're just we've already talked about all that, but now it's really even tougher. And Kelly Services, that the third party that we contract with, they just announced vaccinations are required, or you're gonna have to test, and I really worry about if people put up their, say, fine. And that's why I'm a little gun shy. But I do want you to know that this number was, like I said, I came into Monday and I knew that our numbers were very small, 5 teachers. And so it's obviously really increasing right now.
Which number of those are the teachers?
Oh, sorry, for the seat column. So the 24 is teachers and staff. It's not just teachers, but,
The adults.
and then 41 are the students. Yeah, Robert.
Where can I have access to that sheet so I
So
can
if you go to
share?
BES, just BESD webpage, and in the
Mhm.
first news section, it's kind of pinned to the COVID response. And in there, it's gonna have active COVID cases.
Got it.
Now, when I say active COVID,
say-
I'm saying it's as good as our data is able to. And where we're a little hot right now, I'm updating it every day. We have people that help with the students. I just kind of handle the adults as my role.
So if I'm looking at this, I see Box Elder Middle is 14.
Yeah,
So they're our highest right now,
yeah.
which is interesting because I have students in all the schools and that's the only one I didn't get a notice that my child might be exposed.
Well, this was at noon today. And
Okay.
like I said, some of these are home tests and we're just trying to,
So are these including home tests if we know, we
well,
don't
we
know?
don't know. I think some are, but it's just becoming more and more available.
Yeah,
So
okay.
anyway, I'm a little concerned, but everything we're hearing is it's a little blip in the system. There are some school districts in Salt Lake that have chosen to go virtual on Friday and virtual on Tuesday, using the Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a buffer day. And then you have your 5 days of isolation to kind of help just kill it. But that would work perfectly if all of us would go right into our homes and never talk or leave our home. By the way, there's a snowball dance, I believe, at Box Elder High this weekend. So I guarantee you, if you were to go to anyway, there's home games. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of here. And I guess right now it's a little hard. Right now, Logan has 2 schools, one in test to stay and one almost to test to stay. And Cash has one that's at 24, and they figured by the end of the day, it would be over 30. So, but then there's, like I said, 8 pages of other schools. So right now it's just, I've never seen it quite like this. And, so it does beg the question, how do we keep on staying positive? How do we keep working? How do we manage this? And I had kudos out to our employees. Kudos out to our parents for trying to manage this. It's a tough deal here, but they keep doing it. They keep working, but it is a scramble every day at our schools of how we're going to get someone in front of kids to try to help them. And then all the kids that are gone, remember, they're gone for 5 days. So that's 5 days worth of canvas work and keeping up and reteaching and helping. So this becomes a problematic. Now, we've had higher counts. 41 is not like the worst we've ever had. But the fact that we went from 7 to 41 in 2.5 days means it's here and it's in our community. Communities, I should say. I don't know if I have much to say. Oh, I will say that the document you have that's listed there, maybe I could pull it up. So thank you, Superintendent, for getting that taken care of. Just so you know, just because of how quickly this Omicron is hitting us and then leaving us, they've changed isolation now to 5 days. But the first day is the day you test, and then, or that doesn't really count as the 5, but you got your day, your test, plus 5 more days, which gives us a total of 6. Then the recommendation, and I don't know who's tracking, and I'm certainly not out asking and checking, but the recommendation is they would come back with a mask, would be the recommendation. We've had a few people say, you're mandating mask in It's just a recommendation from the health department, but via CDC guidelines. So all of this is on our webpage. We've sent this out to staff, to parents, and so it's available. So questions maybe that have stirred that you would like to ask?
Well, I would suspect at some point, if the numbers were high enough, we have to shut down. I don't know if we have a number or we just work with the health department and at some point they, we gotta
Yeah.
shut down, but.
One of the things, I mean, the whole test to stay is to try to keep us in person.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's really helped us is test the classroom. So when you get a classroom that gets hot and we've got, 3 or 4 cases, by going in and saying, let's test this class, it's kept us from getting to 30. And we've had that probably, what would you think, Steve? Maybe 3 or 4 classrooms. Lakeview got hot for a while, Foothill got hot for a while. The ILSC, this building actually is hot right now. Hot not with students, but our staff. About 60% of our staff is out. And so they went virtual this week to try to keep managing, but anyway.
Well, I just wonder if there's some number or something that you look at where you say, you're limping along and things are getting bad. You look at the state numbers, it's astronomical.
Yeah, over 10,000.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're just a reflection of that, but does it make sense to, let's take a break, take 5 days off, and then maybe, we can pick back up again and, you got teachers that are home because their spouses are sick or whatever, and so at some point, does it make sense to try to put a dent in this thing and, slow it down? I don't know.
No, I think that's a valid question. The question is like I've always asked, is could we keep people in their homes?
Yeah.
And I think we could keep them out of the schools, and therefore we wouldn't have a sub issue. I just worry if, like we did in March 2020, when we went to 60 days of soft closure, we lost subs because they're like, we're not working, so we're heading. I would hate to inadvertently, and so there's a lot of variables about inadvertently taking subs out of the pool because they're not work, but it might save us. So that those, anyway, and I don't have a great.
Well, I think it's in conjunction with the Bear River Health Department. Sit down and look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Look at the trend line, which way is it going?
Yeah.
And I do think that is a possibility to go 5-day virtual, and we can do that pretty much on the move. It'd be nice to have a day so we could probably hand out Chromebooks.
Right.
Those kids who don't have them.
But we've had some things that we've learned, and that is, Canvas is up and running. Kids know how to get in. And unlike March of 2020, when we were just limping along and holy moly. But, we had the threat up in the north end of the district, and we just went virtual. And learning occurred, not as good as in person, but it occurred a lot smoother. We had a propane issue out in Park Valley. They went to virtual. It was like, we had an emergency in Willard with some, I don't remember what it was, but anyway, so they said, you know what, we need to go. So, and so unlike before, when it was like, when we're going to make up this day, we're able to kind of massage these out. Whereas before, Wade, you probably remember that, the dreaded, we're going to take a day off spring break because we got to make up that day. And now we have the ability to kind of weather some of those things, which is really nice.
So don't we still have 2 PD days that we haven't used?
Yeah, yeah. If you really want to know the answer to that, we do. Because we voted 2 in and you could get up to 4. So they're out there.
We can have that. I heard from a few students that say that there's so many subs and so many teachers out, and I don't know what that so many is, but they feel like that it's that they're not getting an education. They're filling seat time, but I would echo what Brian said, is we might need a number, and just in support of our teachers, if they have people at home or they're sick, I think that it would be good if we looked at the possibility of maybe using at least those 2 PD days to help just weather this out. I don't know if we're at the height of the wave. I don't know if it get bigger, but I know that our teachers have been pretty stretched for a long time, and I hope that we don't keep pushing them too far. So I would just echo what Brian said, if we have a number that at some point.
And I wish, I mean, one of the things I just thought of, and I certainly can make this change tomorrow. And that is back to this COVID case here. One thing I could do maybe to help is first column students, second column teachers, third column other employees. Might give us a little flavor of out of those 24, how many are teachers. I mean, I know I'm improving and we're working through that, but I don't know if that helps us, but I really don't know what the right answer is. Every time there's a teacher gone and there's not a sub, then another teacher's covering on their prep and they've got 5 teachers helping that one teacher out. And, what do they normally do? They do the best they can, but the younger they are, maybe the elementary teachers can really, but at the secondary level, you're going to talk content. You might bring in a band teacher. I saw a picture. We saw a PE teacher is actually running the band.
I showed that to my husband and he said, when Reader shows up to coach basketball, I want to watch that.
I think that shows us how hard our teachers are working.
They are. I wish.
Shout out.
For them. When we gave them that bonus that you approved, but I wish it could be more, because it's just been, I don't even know how you ever plan for what they're trying to do right now. But they are troopers. They really are.
Well, and I wonder, you bring up the point of home tests and not everybody goes and gets tested. So is there another piece of this puzzle we need to be looking at? Like, how many substitutes do we have and how many people are out?
Well,
maybe we need to look at that and not just.
Today was the report every morning. So tomorrow morning I'm going to get this report. And if by Friday, by Monday,
4-day week.
I don't know. Again, boy, for everything there's a positive, there may be a negative. Jeremy's here talking about people learning language. And if you're not in person, it's a little harder to do. But at the same time, having a sub shortage, and are they really getting anything out of that day? That begs another question. So anyway, I think we'd be open to ideas. I don't know if there's a silver bullet to try to answer it, though.
I think that, the bonus that was appreciated, but I think if there's a way that we can show our teachers and our adult professionals that their health is important to us, I think that would go a long way too.
I will say something that I had a report from, we're one of 10 major districts that use GPS services as kind of our third party to help us with our benefits, et cetera. And they sent me a report of every district and if they're offering any kind of COVID pay. And we're one of 2.
That's awesome.
It's keeping people employed. It's keeping people paid as we tell them you can't come to work. But we are obviously not what most people are doing. Most people are just saying, take your own leave. I'm sorry, that's the way life goes. We haven't got into, you have to be vaccinated to get the leave. We've just said 1,600 of you, we love you. When you get it, we're sorry. And we're just doing the best we can. So that is one way that I don't know if they appreciate it, but if they talk Canyons and Jordan and Nevo and Granite and Weber, they might say, wow, that's kind of a nice little. And last year, we gave 10 days. This year we gave 5, 15 days of leave. And of course, it's kind of a general account. Which I don't like, but I don't like the other alternative of saying, suck it up, buttercup.
Well, thank you for offering that. I do think that helps, but I think
that's good. My question is, if we did want to use those 2 PD days, how far in advance would we need to let?
So you should have the state lost us 90 days.
Well,
Yeah.
we had to,
And we can go virtual,
okay,
you know, just on,
on the fly.
yeah. But to actually, to allow parents time to schedule, you know, all that, it's supposed to be 90.
But Canyons yesterday announced that Tuesday they're off. They just decided that's going to be a virtual day,
Virtual, yeah.
and they made that decision yesterday. I don't know if that's enough time, obviously. But, so I don't know.
Well,
I
I
can
think
keep
it's
you
good
posted.
information. Thank you for keeping us posted. And like I said, I know it is, I'm hoping this is if it's a big wave, I hope it's a short, you know, like a quick
Yeah.
turnaround. That's what, you know, but I really appreciate all the work that has been done and that is continuing to be done for our students and our teachers.
You know, and we've mentioned teachers, but I mean, our students, they're the ones that have to have a sub every day, or
Yeah.
my history teacher's teaching me science because we're just scrambling, or I've got a para who stepped in to cover the class. So our students are also having to battle hard
flexible.
as well.
They're learning life skills.
Yeah.
They all should get a half credit for life skills.
Just wondering, I know some districts did this last year, but they had like alternating days where half the kids would come in and have to do that day online and then they switch. Like, is that, would that help at all? Is that, I just wondering.
I think last year they did it because of the 6-foot spacing and they wanted to have fewer kids in the building. That was the main reason they did it. So now they're not, I haven't heard talk about 6 feet spacing so I think
Yeah.
that's really why they did it. So I don't know if that'd be as beneficial as used to be.
Not on our agenda. But thank you. There's no right answer, right? We're all just plugging along, doing the best we can. So appreciate all the work that's been put into that. All right, let's move on to our policy review. These are all second readings, so there's several of them, but are there any questions?
I move we approve the policies.
Thank you.
Second reading. It's
Just-
9 o'clock.
Just one quick comment. I did add a clarification in parentheses of what verification means. in that.
Oh, thank you.
That Karen asked, because that, a lot of people don't understand that.
So that was added in.
No, and I'll second the nomination.
Okay, so we have a motion by Nancy and a second by Brian to approve the policies on second reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, board discussion items, our USBA conference. Does anybody we talked a little bit about some of the things we learned while we were there visiting. Is there anything else that anybody wants to make mention of or no?
Just really quick.
Go ahead, Connie.
There was mention that some districts have indicated an amount of time that can be used for public comment. Now, I don't know that we have a big issue about that, but at some point, it's something that we might want to consider, that this much time is allotted
Yeah.
Collectively.
collectively.
Right.
Yes. I thought that was kind of interesting. I wrote it down. I thought, you know what, that might be something we want to consider if it gets to the point that it takes over our meeting.
Sure.
It's 3 minutes and then they have 30 minutes.
Right.
So,
That's what they
That's good.
mentioned.
And that would be in our policy, right? We would have to be
We
policy.
would have to add that to our policy.
So maybe that's something we can look at
A
as a
total of
policy.
30 minutes, yeah.
A total of, yeah. And yeah, we haven't had a problem so far, but
we have in years past.
have we? Okay. Nancy.
So shout out to Sean. She sent out a text to go to this mental health workshop. And it wasn't really on my radar, but I went and there were some amazing things. So I met with Jackie Whitaker, given her all the information on this. She is so excited. There's a program out of Utah County that it's a Resilient Families. There's a free online presence. It's astounding. It's doTERRA is funding it. Anyway, but I just wanted to thank Sean for that because it was one of the best classes I went to in the conference. And I gave Jackie the information and she's really excited.
Good.
And once you turn Jackie loose,
Yeah.
miracles happen.
She'll
So,
get it done.
so anyway, thank you. That was,
I want to say thank you all for letting me come. It was really, really enjoyable, and my parents enjoyed it too, and I learned a lot, and it was really, really fun. So thank you for letting me come.
I'm so glad you came. I love that we have, like this year, there were a couple other student board members, but that is unusual. And so
Yeah.
I'm really grateful you came. It's wonderful to see you involved in learning in that way.
Yeah.
And
But
Oh,
that,
right.
sorry, that mental health website is really, I just like want to go over it really fast because it was, I think I was the only person from our district in the one that I went to, but then Nancy went. It's this website that's, because the woman who did the workshop explained it really well. Like as parents, when your kid like falls, scrapes their knee, you know what to do. Say, hey, you know, Neosporin, a Band-Aid, done. But when they say, hey, like, I'm being bullied or I'm having these, you know, unpleasant thoughts, like, not every parent knows how to deal with that. And so it's this website, and it's free. The website is free. And it's just these videos by, like, professionals walking parents through the basics of mental health. But they have that basic understanding of what to do. And then there's also, like, extra resources that you'd have to pay for, but like mental health night where these families can join like this webinar thing anonymously. So there's no like worry about like, if, you know, oh, I don't want to like out our family or whatever. It's anonymous. And so it's just this really great resource. And I think we should definitely implement that. Just put it on our website or something. But
so the website is parentguidance.org. And it's little vignettes, everything from like my child, you know, is being bullied or, you know, my kid doesn't have friends at school to what happens when they talk suicide. And it's there. The thing I really liked about it, it's a Utah-based company. As she explained, the president of doTERRA in his ecclesiastical role was called to a home where there had been a suicide. The father of a young boy. The father was out of town and the mother was there. So he went and came home saying no family should ever have to do that. So he put in $15 million to start this. And so they're the therapists and the clinicians and all are Utah based. Anyway, it's parentguidance.org. It's a great site. It's easy to access, and what a lot of school districts are, where we post like the Safe Utah app, Safe UT, on websites, they're putting this parent guidance seal just above that, so parents can refer to that.
So I think that just both of your comments are great. So Jackie's created this well-being website that's under student services. But we also, just under families, we could just put a link here as well. And if we do that on every website, where families could have access to that. So that, I think that'd be good, but other thoughts would be welcome.
could we also send out, what are they called, the peach jar flyers? Or some,
Well, we do In Touch just shoots it to everybody.
yeah,
And say this is where it's located,
Yeah,
and what it is.
write down what it is. 'cause
So
I know-
Jackie's gonna be doing work on that.
Okay.
Okay,
So
great.
she's fired up. When I gave her the info, she's,
Oh, you've already talked.
Amazing.
oh yeah, we,
Wonderful.
yeah, we talked on phone. She's
Very
like, "I'm sick, call me."
Yeah.
Julie, one quick
Yeah.
thing I wanted to bring up, kind of related to what Connie was saying. Something that I feel like is kind of awkward in our boardroom is when people get up to give a presentation or talk. They don't know where to go. Is there a way we could establish a location? That way the camera would know where to turn to that person, they know addressing the board and the audience. I don't know, is there something?
Robert and I had that discussion just this week, and so I think, well, we didn't decide exactly what
So
to do.
this box here is designed, so you know, you have to get up to see it on the floor. It's actually designed for a podium to be here. And if there's a podium here, there's another box that connects to the whole system. You can connect an HDMI here. There's no microphone port,
Yeah.
but at least not on the box that we found. But there's possibility that there's another box that has a microphone port, so they can have their video. If they have a presentation, if they have a mic, they should be able to talk. We should be able to hear it all. This was designed originally for that. Now, we're still learning the system and what it was designed to do. So we've been playing a little bit this week. So we'll keep working on that.
Does that work if like, oh, okay, so if they have, like, if you've got the camera, will we not see, like, if someone's like, they're talking to us,
We would
see it, but would the,
I would have to reposition this location, and this is probably not where I want it to be anyway. So, yeah, this is well, and we've talked about another one of those. There's a place over in this corner where we could put one, which would give us a good view. So when I'm pointing to the, my right-hand corner, would be your left-hand corner. Yeah, so there's a lot of things we can do to improve our video quality here. The requirement is audio only, but we are doing video because we have to have closed captions. Closed captions with audio doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a transcript. But it's working really well right now for the closed captions, the way I have this mic set up. So there's a lot of things we can do to make this room better, and I'm trying to do it without spending, tons of money. So do it with what we have.
That's a good question, Brian, because that's.
Yeah.
Seems like it's been awkward. Yeah, it has.
yeah.
And the thing is, product safety, workshop, is people who come to present in the district office and schools or wherever, it's better to have them in the front row, because it brings a more positive vibe to the room, and also brings a buffer if you're having a meeting that's a little radical. So, and usually ours always sit in the back, and I think it'd be nice to have them on the front row. They may not like it.
And they're still welcome to leave after their presentation. I think that's why they want to sneak out and not really, it's okay. Yeah, I remember that safety thing as well. I went to that one as well. And we are very fortunate. I'm listening to some of the other boards and some of the meetings that they've had. We haven't necessarily needed that, but I think that is, and I like to see their bright shiny faces again.
That means when they get up to present, they're right here.
And prepared.
And it's easier and they know where to go.
I think we could improve this area and make it better, and I wouldn't be here then. I would move over for sure, right? But I moved here so that I could capture better audio and be able to capture you guys a little bit better. And I don't know if you've looked at any of the video. Why would you? You lived it. Why would you want to relive it, right?
Because it's exciting.
Exciting.
It's very helpful when I need
And-
information.
And Tiffany, yeah, you were able to go through it and find the information you needed to be able to visit with your representative. And Tiffany's not here. She was in the room for a little while in the virtual room, but she can go back. I'm hoping that tonight's is the best video yet. And I'm hoping that we just get a little bit better each time. So
Thank you.
So how many people we had on tonight with us?
not that many.
Grace.
Probably, yeah, the very least amount tonight. And I'll be honest, I have not been paying attention to the attendees because I've been working both cameras, the one in the back and this one at the same time. And then I'm trying to keep up with everything and mirror what Keith is doing, showing you. I'm trying to show that exact same screen in the room, so that those people that are going to rewatch this later are seeing the numbers. And that's why I interrupted him, and I felt like, I shouldn't be doing this, but that was a really good spreadsheet that everybody needed to see. So that's where we're at with our production, Brian.
It's good. I think we're improving, but I think that's a good suggestion. And my question is, do we want a podium there, or do we just want to designate the spot? Or, does anybody have a preference on?
Everybody asks, where should they stand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What do you
something,
need for audio?
something
Do
would
we
be
need to give
fine.
them a microphone or we be able to pick them up?
So in the past, when we have hooked up a microphone, it's been through an XLR, which we do not have an XLR in this box. If we didn't do much more than, say, a music stand or a microphone, then we would do that with the XLR. But the box that Crestron, which is the system in the room that was designed for, it's a metal box that's meant to be mounted to a podium. And then it connects in through, there's a special plug in there, an RJ45 that uses an Ethernet cable to transmit all of that data back and forth. And we don't have it. We've never really played with it because we haven't had the need. But now you're bringing us into that. There's a need.
Class will say,
One more to do.
I think there's a box under these guys' feet that does have a mic, and we have run a mic over there before.
Yeah.
And we could do that, but it's a mic on top of the floor.
Right.
Tripping hazard.
yeah.
Well, and you'll notice we gaffer tape tonight because we expected a lot more public comment. This is a controller that is controlling the camera, and it natively was meant to be connected at this box over here. So we switched it tonight so we could do it this way, but next time it may be over there.
Well, I
We'll
think
see.
you're doing a good job getting this set. Any other comments from our,
If I know it's getting a little bit late, but I found it absolutely fascinating, our student board members' public education or her education journey. So if she wouldn't mind, I asked her if she'd take a few minutes and tell everybody where she's gone to school her 12 or 13 years.
Sure. So I was born in South Carolina, and then when I was 3 months old, my family moved to Kuwait, which is in the Middle East, and we lived there for 3 years. Obviously, I was not in school then, and then we moved to China, and we lived there for 5 years, and then China for 6 years, Kenya for 5 years, and then 2018, we moved here. 2018, I think it was.
So you spent your ninth grade year you came here.
Yeah, so I started high school at Box Elder, and it was I'd never lived in America before, and I had never gone to public school before because all the schools I had gone to prior were the private American schools run by the U.S. Embassy, and that's where my parents taught. They taught at the schools that I went to. And so that was kind of that's all I knew. And then it was a very big adjustment moving here, but I've grown the most from living here, being just that big adjustment. I've grown the most here, and also the best teachers I've ever had have been at Box Elder High School. And so I'm grateful that we ended up here. I mean, how kind of everywhere, and then Brigham City, it's kind of even bad.
we're exotic, we're gonna be on the exotic map now, because you're putting on this, right?
Well, Sean said they did look around and they liked that her mother was an elementary teacher.
Yeah.
Her mother isn't it, but she saw the DLI program and she's a native speaker Chinese.
Yep.
So she became one of our DLI teachers.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of brought us here. Her dad goes to work every day, drives up the freeway to Clearfield High, teaches chemistry, Clearfield High. So they were international, is that?
Yeah, they were
International
international teachers, yeah.
I just thought that was very, very unique, so.
Yes. Well, thanks for sharing that. We're happy that you stopped here.
We need to get the word out that you just made a lot of points with some Box Elder High teachers, that's teachers. We're gonna get that word out.
Just so you know, I could use some extra credit.
I know your grades. Okay. All right, let's go to our consent items. We did the board
Make the
members.
motion, we pass our consent items.
Second.
So a motion by Karen and a second by Brian to pass our consent items. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, lost it. Where's my agenda? Yeah, suggestions for future board meetings. Anything we need to add? Oh, yes, as you notice, the book that we're going to be doing our book study on, this came from one of our conferences we went to in the fall. This was suggested, and if you'll notice in here, the bookmark actually has the reading schedule. They're pretty short little snippets, but they're built into sections. So it's how not to be a terrible school board member. So hopefully we'll find ourselves in the not category, and if we can learn. But so if we will read section 1 before our next board meeting, we'll be discussing that on February 9th. And there are, let's see, there's 4 sections. And then there's 7 habits about in each section, it looks like. So. Makes me think. So anyhow, like there's 7 board members, maybe you could all report on a habit, but maybe you don't want to do that. Just think how you want to do it. I don't care. Just, we'll figure it out. So that is for this coming board meeting. Anything else that we need to put on there? Legislative update, policy review. We've had all of our reports. Do we need to appoint someone in that meeting, like the,
That I will find out. I will
Okay.
find out. Rod and I will work hard on the next 2 days on that.
figure out what we need to do?
Okay, I volunteer us both.
And then at that board meeting, we're going to be discussing business administrator.
Yes.
Will that be our open meeting or is that in a meeting session?
Well, I think we have principal scheduled, so we could probably, I think that's something we could discuss in the meeting or nothing.
Well, we're not deciding, we're not taking any action. We're just talking about what's going to happen. Okay, so we probably want to put that on. Anything else?
I do not want to take any cupcakes home, so take them home. I'm starting to diet tomorrow.
Well, you can eat 5 tonight.
Yeah, you pulled up tonight.
I told my kids you would be a hero.
Take them home to your kids, grandkids, whoever.
Thank you. And board handbook, I think we're okay on that. Okay,
I move we adjourn.
motion to adjourn by Brian, second by Karen, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. See you next month.
I was just happy when I sat down and saw this book.